Going live. You're good.
I don't like it when we do it this way.
Silence followed by
20 seconds of silence, then you get the 3, 2, 1. It's like we're on the nightly news, which we're clearly unqualified to be doing.
yeah, you know, the makeup artist barely got off the.
Gosh, dang it. I didn't shave today.
I can tell.
I know, right? Look at me.
Yeah.
I think I look younger when I shave. I also think I look skinnier though. I get a lot of like, have you lost weight? I don't know what the deal is with that.
What do? You lose weight off your face.
I guess so. So anyway, welcome back to the GORUCK show. My name's Blayne.
I'm Jason. It's good to be back.
Yeah, we had guest hosts for the last 2 weeks, Bomber and Lee. I think they filled in dutifully and capably. They did a nice job, I think.
Great.
I guess the community gets to vote on that, but I think people still tuned in, so that was cool.
People vote with their eyeballs on this stuff.
That's right, they absolutely do, and their thumbs maybe too. I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
So this week, we want to talk about
some minefields.
Yeah, this week we want to see if we can get ourselves in some real deep trouble with everyone from our wives to everyone. And we want to talk about women. But specifically, we want to talk about badass women, right? We'll talk about empowered, badass women. You and I are both very fortunate to have a lot of them in our collective and respective lives and have learned a lot and benefited a lot from that. It's also Women's History Month, so it seems like a good time to do it. But we've talked a lot, just since I've been here, about how do we get more women involved in GORUCK. We have a clothing line for women coming out soon.
Promised them 218. Hey,
Yeah.
I like my yeses to mean yes, my no's to mean no, my promises to stand. So
Yeah.
it's going to happen.
So you wrote a thing not long ago, right? How long ago was it? 2 or 3 months ago?
2 or 3 months. Yeah, we just need empowered women.
Yeah.
Period, the end. And so, you know, it's always easy to sit and, you know, talk about what's wrong with the way that we market this or market that, but there's things that you can actually do to empower all of us. But we're, you know, on the women front, there's a lot of value to being more active. You know, like we have a 6-year-old daughter, right? This is really important to us.
Yeah.
And you have how old's one?
18 months.
18 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these things are really important when you start to look at it through that lens, and you want your daughter, you want the women that you know and love to feel empowered to go do awesome stuff in this world. And so much of that involves being active and viewing your body as a way to go do stuff, not just be looked at or sought after or whatever, all of that stuff.
All the negative stuff that we're going to try to avoid saying too much about so we don't get in trouble. But yeah, let me ask you this. Having a daughter, I hate to admit it, but I think that having a daughter it certainly has changed my perspective on this. I would hate to think that it sort of changed my fundamental feelings about any of this, but it definitely is an eye-opener, and it's something that is now at least in the front of my mind, whereas maybe before it was in the middle or the back of my mind a lot of times. But having a daughter has really opened my eyes to this, wow, I've got to be much more vigilant and much more serious about the way I approach and talk about and think about all of this stuff, because as you said, if you've got a daughter, then you have a very vested interest in how the way the world views women, the opportunities for women in the world, and all of that stuff. And the old joke is like, you know, you're not going to date until you're 30, and I'm going to chase boys off the porch with a shotgun, blah, blah, blah. But which may or may not be the case.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we'll see. Very cute little girl, but I don't even want her to believe that. Like, I would prefer for her to believe that, look, Dad's here to support you and back you up in any way you need, but you're going to be smart and you're going to be confident, you're going to be capable, and you're not going to be bringing a bunch of knuckleheads around the house because you don't need that shit in your life. Because you know your worth and you're going to have the confidence to shoo the knuckleheads away yourself. And if any of them are aggressive, then Dad will be here with a shotgun. But otherwise, you got this, you know?
Yeah, I think that takes a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know?
So I actually think about this with all my kids, but I think about it, I think, just more often with my daughter, is that if I could instill one thing in my kids growing up, if I only do one thing right, I want them to be confident. More than anything else. More than capable, more than smart, more than academically successful or any of that stuff. I really think it's important for the kids to emerge from their childhood or sort of survive their childhood of me being their dad and be confident individuals. And I think for my daughter, I feel even more that way because she's going to be smart, she's going to be capable, but I want for her to be able to make good decisions and to move through this world confidently in an empowered way. And I don't know exactly how to do that. So if anybody out there's got tips, I am all ears, but it's the first thing I think about when I think about how do we do this, how do we handle that, how do we address this. It's all going to be, what's the best way that we can do this? It's going to leave her feeling more empowered and more confident.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think going off of what some of the stuff that we've done to feel empowered, it's always a little different for guys and girls, right? But ultimately, you have to pick big things and you have to go after them, and you have to do them. You have to train for them. You have to prepare for them. You have to put yourself out there, and then you have to throw yourself in the ring. And we're really fortunate at GORUCK to have a lot of those kinds of women in our community that are they're not the wallflowers so much. They're,
right.
They tell you what they think and they get after it. And I think those to whom much is given, much is expected. And so if you're the kind of person, if you're the kind of woman who wants to go forth and pick big, dream really big and get after it, then you can serve as more of an inspiration for a lot of girls, including the next generation of girls who are out there who are young right now. So I take a lot of inspiration. I mean, I live around and with some pretty empowered women. So I take further inspiration from our community and the stuff that we see out there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that might be tricky, and look, I'm completely speaking out of turn because I don't know this from personal experience, but based on talking to a lot of really awesome women in my life, I think one of the things that can be challenging about really putting yourself out there and being an example and being a role model sometimes is that there can be a lot of pressure then. So let's say you get over the hump and you say, look, I'm not going to be a wallflower. I'm not going to stand by. I'm going to sign up, show up, and take on these big things that you were talking about. I think a lot of women can tend to feel then pressure that their personal performance in anything, whether it's being a CEO of a company or being successful in a GORUCK challenge or whatever, is somehow reflective and representative to all the other women in their life. Like, don't screw this up or you're going to screw it up for all of us women. And I think that is probably not helpful. So I just want to put that out there. I think in the sense that when you step forward and you do something big and bold and you act in an empowered way, you are oftentimes a role model and an example for other people in your life, not just other women in your life, but maybe
let's make the
woman
woman in the arena a thing.
Yeah, but you represent you too. And I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. If you're empowered and you step up and you go after something big, you don't have to feel the additional pressure of an entire gender, 52% of the world's population hanging in the balance of whether you succeed in that CEO role or you finish a GORUCK heavy. Yes, they're looking up to you. Yes, you might be a role model, but don't feel like you have to live up to everyone's expectations or represent everybody. You represent you, and that's enough. And I think some women out there would do more and would act more boldly if they really got that message and didn't feel so much pressure to I almost don't want to go too big because then if I screw it up, then I'm a woman who screwed something up and that therefore reflects negatively. I just don't think that's a real thing, and I don't think there should be any pressure for that to be a thing.
It probably is a real thing, but it shouldn't be. And psychologically, what I've found is that the more pressure you place on yourself for the world to validate you, the more self-fulfilling the prophecy is that you're going to fail, right? So if you sit and say, I have all this pressure, it becomes that becomes the cooker in your brain. It's just, you start focusing on that instead of just on one foot in front of the other and do the job. And you're just a person just like we are. Just do the job. It's great. You can do it. And so, yeah, look, I agree. More women empowered to not think of themselves as bearing the weight of the world on their shoulders would be a good thing.
Sure. I mean, if you take the gender out of it, you're an athlete, you are a business person, you are, go on down the line. And, your successes or failures and the way you represent yourself and your integrity is yours. And I think it would be beneficial for all of us if we didn't feel like we have to then also take an entire category, veterans. It's kind of the same thing. I try hard not to feel like I mean, I can't help but feel the SF community and the veteran community, I want to do them proud. I want to be responsible when I'm using that name or that reference, but I don't want to feel like I can't do anything risky, or I can't have an opinion, because therefore I'd be like letting everyone down, or I'm speaking on behalf of everyone, because I know that I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, it is just a fact, though, that the second you become a Green Beret, they basically tell you that anything that you do from now on, they're going to attach that moniker in front of your name before the rest of the sentence is written. So, lead a life worth leading, and do right by us. And that doesn't, hey, someone dared greatly and failed in that process. That's part of the game. That's just the nature.
That's part of the game.
Yeah. So you go out and dare greatly, and come what may. It's the sort of, when you get too wrapped up into being this symbol for something, that sometimes it's better to just go do stuff.
Well, for sure, because the other thing too is, and I don't want to be negative about this, but other people will hang their bullshit on you if you're not careful, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those who are making things, creating things, building things, doing things, oftentimes get the expectations, or just the bullshit of the people on the sidelines, or like Brene Brown calls them, in the cheap seats. They like to project their stuff onto you, and you're sort of somehow meant to carry this with them, and it's like, hey, look, that's your thing. You need to get busy doing, making, building, creating, and not worry so much about,
So how should it work, though? Because, you've got, the Mia Hamms of the world, or the sort of sports heroes of the world. They can help a lot, right? You can get young girls who say, I want to be like Mia Hamm,
right?
And that's going to get them being active and doing stuff that's team sports and all of that stuff, all the good stuff that comes with that. So the society kind of has to generate. I mean, it sells more magazine covers too. It sells more eyeballs on
more
sports
soccer
games,
cleats,
right? More soccer cleats, more all of that stuff. So how should that work? Who should girls look up to? Who should women look up to?
Yeah. So I'm not king for a day here, but I would say I'll look at it from both angles. If you're the prominent individual, then I think the best thing you can do is just always sort of act within your integrity. And that could mean the way you conduct yourself on the field of play. It could mean the way you conduct yourself in the post-game interview, the way you conduct yourself in your family, on the street, in your business, all of those things. And then, consistent with that, the way you choose to give back, the way you choose to be engaged in the community. I think if you do it in a way that feels right for you, and you feel like you've got sort of the skills and the experience and the platform to do that right, you'll make good decisions around that. I think if you do it in a way where you feel like it's thrust upon you, or you have some obligation to do it this way, or be in this forum, that's when I think you can start getting tripped up and
because
get
you're
in
not
trouble.
actually ready for it. So you're describing two very different people, though, right? There's the person who's the found model on the street corner, who then is thrust into the spotlight because they had the right haircut or the right look for a season, and they're thrust into the spotlight, and they're on the cover of something, and they become some sex symbol or whatever. Well, the problem is they never had to go through the hardship, potentially, of that would make them ready to deal with all of the spotlight and all of that kind of stuff that you're forced to face when that happens. Whereas if someone is allowed to develop, I mean, sports stars are potentially a better way to look at it, because it's just really hard work. You can be more gifted, and that's great, but you have to put a lot of work in, and there's a discipline. There's if it's a team sport, there's a lot of camaraderie attached to that as well. There are shortcuts, and some people are more gifted, but there's a process to that. A lot of times, you'll see people, they're an actor, or they're an actress, or they're a model, or they're whatever, and all of a sudden they're thrust into the spotlight, and someone asks them what they think about something, and they're not really paid to be a political commentator, and yet then, because they have the spotlight, it's sort of it's just that sells more clicks, and so we also have to choose carefully who we sort of idolize.
Yeah, so first of all, I think the phenomenon you're describing is absolutely the case. I totally agree. But I would also say that even people who sort of take the longer path and earn their way to the top in whatever area of expertise they're in, I also think that sometimes those people do feel they do get a lot of advice, and they are offered a lot of opportunities to speak on behalf of women or on behalf of the gay community, on behalf of veterans. Yeah. And all I'm saying is those people, look, you've earned your place, you've earned your platform, and you've earned your voice. And so all you have to do is act within your integrity and just choose to use it in a way,
a great way to say it,
that feels most comfortable for you. And if you're not a speech giver at the Oscars, if that's not your jam, you shouldn't feel obligated if you win an Academy Award to give some sort of big political speech just because that's what everyone's doing and you feel pressured to. Look, if that's you, then fine. And if that's not you, then it's okay to say, I want to thank my parents and all my amazing co-stars, and then move on and choose to share your voice in different ways. But if you do it in a way that's consistent with who you are and your integrity, chances are you've been doing it in smaller ways along the way too. Those types of people tend to do that. And so you're going to have a much easier time. In terms of who women should look up to, I would broaden the category, and I would say, if I just think about my kids, I have 2 boys and 1 girl. I encourage all of them, and Penny's too little to really understand, but I encourage my sons to be very careful about kind of idol worship. And we don't do that kind of around our house very much. I mean, I'd like for them to look up to their parents first and foremost, but also their coaches and their teachers and people who are worthy of their admiration. But really, I swear them off pretty fast about really being too much into anybody, whether it's a musician or a pro wrestler or an athlete. I kind of say, look, I admire their work.
And because they idolize you, then they listen to you, everything that you say, and
they
take your advice, Dad.
I wish they hung on my every word. No, but I think, for me, I just think you need to separate, we've talked about this before here, it's important to separate the art from the artist. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot with my sons is, I think you can absolutely, and you should absolutely admire someone's play on the field, or their musical ability and that stuff. You should look for people to gain inspiration from. And it's absolutely to have a favorite band, have a favorite team, but admire what they're doing on the field or admire what they're doing on the stage. And you need to be careful about admiring them too much as an individual, because they're a flawed human just like the rest of us. And it's very easy to be let down by them if you get too close. And so proximity and familiarity and authenticity are the things that I want them to think about. So find role models that are close to you, that you know well, and that you can be around consistently, because they're going to show you who they really are, and they're going to give you a better path towards success than people who are far away from you and you interact with very few times or never.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about confidence earlier. You talked about role models. I mean, the Cliff Notes version of my youth was, my mom was 18 and 5 days when she had me. Right, so she was pregnant.
Can you tell that story a little bit more about? Like, this is a great woman in your life that.
Yeah. So mom got pregnant pretty early. My dad was a charmer, I guess, and so she had me, 5 days after her 18th birthday. After she graduated a semester.
Welcome
early.
to adulthood.
Yeah, she was #1 in the state of Ohio in tennis at the time. She sort of rebelled a little bit, quit tennis, and moved in with my grandparents, my dad's parents, and sort of was in hiding for a little bit, even from her own parents a little bit. I mean, it was hard, I mean, she was ostracized. I mean, a pregnant kid in high school, I didn't see too many of those at my high school.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
So she graduated early and then had me, and I sort of united some of the, some of the clans and the tribes were united because, a baby's innocent and all that stuff. But the reality is that my mom's got a kid now, right? And so she had to kind of pick herself back up again and had a lot of support from family and loved ones. But my dad and mom got divorced when I was really young, like 2. And so we moved down. She picked up the tennis rackets again and went to community college at Sinclair Community College, right in Dayton, and actually won junior college tennis nationals. So, and then got a full ride to University of Florida in Gainesville. So I moved down to Florida and was literally the the women's tennis mascot for 3 years down in
Sounds
down
about
in
right.
Gainesville. Go Gators. So people ask me if I went to Florida. I say, well, almost. Right?
Yeah.
I was 2 to 5 or something. And so, my mom was she was always there for me. And she was very protective from the standpoint of, she never wanted anyone to criticize her kids, and this came with my siblings as well. And, her confidence was her big thing as well. She just wanted, and everyone's different, and there's no sort of secret sauce, this is exactly how you do it. But, ultimately I had a lot of people around me but that took a vested interest, but my mom was absolutely the core. Like, she was my rock for years and years and years and years. It was just the two of us until, 80. So I was 8, I think, when she got remarried. We moved to Dallas. And so, my mom and I we spent a lot of time together, and that influenced me hugely. And so, my mom did a lot of pretty awesome stuff. I mean, she was not the best athlete in the family, but she's the most proven athlete in the family, right? I mean, she just outworked everybody. She worked really hard. She went through was number 1 in the state of Ohio in tennis, won junior college nationals, was then all SEC, captain of the women's team in Florida. Oh, by the way, in college with a 2-year-old. I mean,
so if I don't think we have a lot of college students that watch this, probably a lot of parents of college students. Just put that in perspective. You think college is hard? Try being a college student and going to class and being an all SEC tennis player, and by the way, having a kid.
Yeah, good luck.
Like, I can't even imagine that in college. And you hear college kids, and I'm not like railing against college kids, but you think it's hard to get up to go to your 8 a.m. class or your 9 a.m. class. Like,
it is.
You need to check yourself. Like, it's relatively speaking, that is not hard. Yeah. Life is hard. College is easy.
Yeah.
Life is hard.
Yeah. I mean, at that time though, I remember college, life got a lot harder, but I was also more prepared for it later in life, because college was, you're trying to fit in certain ways. Try fitting in with a 2-year-old. Gets pretty tough.
Yeah.
So
which Thursday night party you go to is?
Yeah, the one with milk and bottles and stuff.
Oh man.
So look, that's sort of my, and I guess it's no big surprise that I'm gonna fall in love with a very empowered woman in Emily that's gonna
also play tennis.
Yeah, also we met playing tennis, and then we just got back from, she's done a bunch of GORUCK events now, and she served America proudly and honorably, and some real garden spots in West Africa and other types of fun places, and she just felt like she could, and in fact never thought that she couldn't, and so she just sort of went out and did great stuff. And so it's when you're around that, it's kind of it's great to see, it's great to be around.
Yeah, I don't think it's an accident that you and I are both married to women who have served Uncle Sam and kind of been through the rigors of that, and who will both put us in our place very quickly and will remind us that we're not particularly special, And then, this is what I love about my wife most, and I love a lot of things about her, is that she has this amazing ability she can both put me in my place and check me, and she will not accept a bullshit answer. You know what I mean? Like, how was your day? It was fine. Stop bullshitting me. Like, I don't get any passes. I don't get to slide on anything. She'll call my bullshit 100% of the time, but also unconditionally supports and loves me, and that's a very unique thing. And I think, I don't want to paint with too broad a brushstroke, but I think women are much better at that in general than men. It's much harder for men. Men with each other, sometimes it's better. Much harder, I think, with our kids and with our spouses and with other people in our lives. But to have someone in your life who will always call you on your bullshit and not let you get away with things, but at the same time leave you feeling like, hey, I have full reign to do what I think is right and to do what I think is best and run as hard as I can run. And if I stub my toe, fall down, skin my knee, whatever, she'll be there, pick me up and be like, you're the best. Like, keep going. Like, you're really good. You just tripped and fell, keep going. Like, that's a really special relationship that I have with my wife. And as I think back on it now, I actually had that same relationship with my mom. Like, I didn't get a pass from my mom. I didn't have one of those moms that was like, little Johnny's the best. If I got in trouble at school, my mom wasn't going to rush into the school and be like, how dare you give my son a referral or detention? He could not possibly have done anything wrong. He's my little angel. No, my mom would be like, what did you do? Why did you do this? Your ass is grounded. Why are you embarrassing us by misbehaving at school? She took the teacher's word for it, And so I didn't get a pass from my mom. She was not easy on me at all. But I can remember, having a bad day on the soccer field or playing a really bad round of golf when I was in high school and thinking like, I'm never gonna go to college, no one's ever gonna recruit me and all these things. And
life's over.
Yeah, and she would be there to say, hey, don't be a defeatist about this. You need to pick your chin up. But also, like, you're great. You're gonna be fine. You're a talented kid. You've got a good future. You just need to keep, you need to get up and keep going. And I've said this a lot about both my parents, but about my mom especially. I really benefited from growing up with parents that were not easy on me and made me kind of earn my keep, pay for my own car insurance, have a job, buy school clothes, all of those things. Like it wasn't a cakewalk at my house growing up. I had responsibilities and chores and all of that. But at the same time, they never pressured me to do anything that I didn't really want to do. I remember being really little, and my parents, sort of the way it was around our house is like, you start things, you finish them, we don't quit, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one year when I was pretty young, I always had played soccer and I loved soccer. But between baseball season and soccer season, there was football season. And all my friends were starting to sign up to play football. And so like a little kid, I gotta play football. I wanna play football. And they said, are you sure? Because it overlaps quite a bit with soccer season. And so if you play football, you're gonna have to take the season off of soccer. Are you sure? And of course, like any 8-year-old or whatever I was, 9 years old, I was like, yeah, I'm sure.
Definitely
I just want what I want right
positive.
now. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not worried about that because that's in the future, And so I was like, yeah, I want to. And so I started playing football and I was good at it and was having a good season, and about halfway through football season or 2/3 of the way through football season, soccer season's getting ready to start, and I see all my friends signing up for soccer. And at this point, I've got 4 or 5 years of soccer under my belt. It's really like my favorite thing. And I start thinking like, man, I can't miss soccer season. Like I'd be willing to quit football if I could play soccer. And I thought my parents were gonna just put their foot down and say, no. You started it, you're gonna finish it, you have to learn your lesson and sit out soccer. And my parents, in an interesting twist, said, okay, you can
Did they eat the $150 worth of equipment and stuff like that? Whatever.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot, I don't think, at the time. But anyway, I remember the football coach coming to my house, though, and being like, are you sure you don't want to play the last 4 games of the season or whatever? Like, we could really use you at running back and this kind of stuff. And my parents stood up for me, and they supported me because they knew that soccer was, and I ended up playing soccer all the way through high school and stuff, They knew, and it was a rare moment where they sort of gave in, I guess, and let me kind of go back on something. But I tell you what, I could have learned the lesson of them forcing me to finish football and not play soccer that year. But I think I learned more from my parents in that moment, in them letting me kind of, renege on a blunder that an 8 or a 9-year-old kid would make. And so
that sounds like something your mom might. Your dad probably was. He was towing the line on you're not quitting anything, son.
It would be, yeah, I don't want to, look, it was 30 years ago, I don't really know, but to the theme of the show today, I would say that my mom played a big role in being that person in my life. And so now when I look back all these years later, and I look at who I'm married to and the way that I kind of live my life now, it's no surprise that I really value the role of the women in my life. I've managed somehow to find really supportive ones to work with me and to share a life with me. And, I'm sure it's not always been easy. Like I've had to learn along the way. I grew up in a man's world. I went to West Point where there were very few women. 18% I think there were when I was there. Then I served in the Army in all roles where there were no women. And I got, it was easy for me because I got to go to work every day and just in a guy's, you had a team room, the deal. Yeah. Like, it's a very guy-friendly place. It's an easy place to be a guy for the most part if you can take some shit and you stand up for yourself and all of that, right? And compete. But it would not be a great place to be a woman, or at least it wasn't when I was there. I can't imagine. So, it's taken some people in my life to sort of show me the way because I haven't been forced to at least not in my younger years.
So women in the military.
Yeah. So first of all, my opinion's definitely changed on this, I would say, over time, or at least it's shifted a little. But one of the things I think is really interesting now over the last few years is they've said we're going to have women in combat MOSs. We're going to allow women to be in the infantry or be in the field artillery and some of these things, or go to ranger school if they can meet the same standards. And I really don't want to get bogged down on whether or not we think the standards are going to go down because of that or whatever. It's up to the services, it's up to the cadre, it's up to all of that for them to live by their word on that. I think, standards should stay the same, and if women can meet those standards, I'm fine with it. But I just kind of chuckle a little bit because this is not a new thing. It's not even close to new, by the way. When I was in 1999, my West Point classmate, Michael Hicks, went to Sapper Leader course, which was a brutally difficult course, and passed, and was the first woman to pass. And I know, because I knew her and would run with her and stuff when we were cadets, she definitely made it and upheld the standard because she was just a stud. No question about it. And then when I served in Iraq in 2004, this idea of women being on the front lines being a new thing, no, back then there were women that were MPs and
military
CA,
police,
military police, civil affairs, psychological operations, engineers. There were women officers who were leading.
Apache helicopter pilots.
Yeah, Apache helicopter pilots, Kiowa pilots. Yeah, my friend Jess Finnegan. So Casey Finnegan and I were both scout platoon leaders, and then we were both in third group together. His wife was an OH-58 pilot and probably shot more people than both of us put together, if I had to guess. But that aside, I mean, there were women. First of all, there were really no front lines in these kinds of wars. So the nature of the warfare has changed quite a lot. So the idea that there's the front and the rear and whatever, that's not even true anymore. But there were women, even logisticians, doing logistical convoys, but especially the military police. And I mean, they were out there engaged all the time, running patrols, dealing with the locals, all of that stuff. And I can't imagine how hard it would be for a woman platoon leader. Now you have to deal with the combat and everything that goes with that, plus your platoon that's mostly men, plus you've got to deal with the locals, the mullahs and all that. I can't even imagine how hard that was, and that was 15 years ago. So this is not a new thing, and the idea that women maybe aren't capable of doing those roles is absolute bullshit, because I witnessed it with my own two eyes over and over and over again a long time ago.
I mean, I don't think the goal is to say it has to be 50-50 though, right? I mean, by saying, hey, women plural,
I think quotas can be very dangerous. Access, I think, is one thing. Forcing quotas and things can be very dangerous.
Yeah, so if you start to say there's not enough women, now you're allowed to be in combat roles, and then you fast forward 10 years and you say, well, this is conjecture, right? But if someone decides to say, well, there's not enough women, there's a bias or something, that's when you're going to start to see standards. If there's a momentum behind the idea that there's some bias. I mean, I would just say for special forces training based upon, so I'll start with GORUCK, a slice of special forces training, right?
Yeah, a day at most, right? Yeah.
A day. And I would say that women have added infinitely to what GORUCK is and what those classes are. It's not because they're always the best under the log. It's because it's a team event and you need to build a team. And so, if you fast forward to firearms days, you say the best person to train is a woman who's never fired before. There's less ego than with a guy thinks that firearms are every guy should just
innately know how to do it, whether he knows or not. Yeah.
Right. And women show up and they from my experience, they show up and they say, I'm here to learn and I want to learn from the best. And so put my ego over here, because guys have a lot more ego. Yeah. Right. From typically, what I've seen. Yeah. and they say, okay, this is about the learning, or this is about the team. The idea of the team coming first, it's the consensus of the team and building a team, that comes more naturally to the women in our community than on average to the guys in our community. And so all of that said, you look at an event like GORUCK selection and you say, we've had one female pass,
But only like a dozen people or 20 people pass total.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. So, but it's not 50-50, and it's not 50-50 in terms of who signs up and who shows up to leverage some of the stuff you're talking about earlier about what's the worst thing that happens? You fail. It's okay. Yeah. Right? So, but the physical demands of Special Forces assessment, selection, and the other parts of the Q course, there's just a lot of weight. And
more importantly, the mission that you have to do once you earn your beret. Mm-hmm. Like that, because that's really what it comes down to, is the training and being able to pass the course and prove yourself as being able to pass the course is only a precursor. That only punches your ticket. That's just the entry fee to be able to then be on a team and then have to do all the things that people on teams are expected to do, because that's really where it's literally life and death. Not training.
I mean, look, I know and have met a lot of females who would be good they would be good members of the Special Forces community. You're just not looking at some sort of quota type thing. I mean, they're almost by exception. And oh, by the way, the guys that you meet in this world, the ones that make it through to Special Forces, it's by exception. I mean, this is not a...
That's worth pointing out, right? Everyone there is there by exception.
This is not like, hey, you go out into the streets and you say, hey, just give me some guys and I'll train them up and they'll become Green Berets. I mean, they're all anomalies. It just gets harder to get more people to even show up, to train properly, and to make it through. So you're dealing with math at a certain point, right? And it's really difficult. But there's certainly women out there, and I've met a lot of them who could, if you just deal with the training, which is a pretty good. I mean, if you can carry 125 pounds for 18 hours or something, which is what it was bad, and you got to suck it up and do it. I mean, if you weigh 110 pounds, you're probably going to have a problem, whether you're a guy or a girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's totally true. I mean, I think we're seeing, though, a willingness to kind of endeavor and to do really hard stuff from women. It's really growing. So if you look at the stats, and I don't want to misquote them because I don't have them in front of me, but I've looked a lot at, first of all, there are more women than men or girls than boys enrolling in college and finishing college. So women are finishing college at a higher rate. More women are going to have college degrees by percentage. If you look at activities like the marathon or the Ironman triathlon, or even GORUCK events, the percentage of women signing up and completing these things is going way up. And in many of them, it's 50-50 or more women than men showing up to some of these like Spartan races and stuff like that, right? So it's not really a lack of willingness, and it's certainly not a lack of access now, which is all a really good news story, by the way. That the women in our lives, the women in the world that we're living in now, want it and are willing to put in the whatever the cost of entry is, the training miles, the applications, the academic rigor, all of that stuff. And it's not just on the intellectual side, it's on the physical side, and it's on the leadership side, the interpersonal side. I mean, we're seeing Indra Nooyi runs PepsiCo and has for a lot of years now. I mean, there are a lot of great examples of women who are just crushing it in all facets of life. And they're doing it because they're willing, like as you mentioned right at the beginning, to kind of step in, to enter the arena and do battle and put themselves out there with probably a higher degree of pressure than a guy like you or I would feel to go in there. And so I think the trend is really positive, and that's one of the things that I also think we have to be a little careful of, is that things just don't happen overnight, and you can't force them to happen just because they're right or they should happen. I mean, you and I were talking about business a couple of days ago. Last Friday, maybe we were talking about when you know what the next big thing is, like for us, we know it's rucking, by the way. When you know it's coming, and when you know, hey, in 5 years that's going to be big, then it's like, why can't it just be big tomorrow then? Yeah. Well, because for a number of reasons, it just has to go through the process to organically become the next big thing. And I think if the trend is good, as we talk about just with our business, we think the trend is strong. We think it's good, it's going in the right direction. And so we're willing to we don't want to take the shortcut or the fast route to the top of the mountain, because we know we're heading that way and we're okay to wait and just sort of do it right and let it build. I think some of these things, whether it's with women serving in combat arms or you name it, the trends appear to be very positive. And it's not where it needs to be maybe yet, and there are still some obstacles in the way. So I'm not trying to placate people, but I think it's it's fair to say a lot of things go better if you allow them to develop more naturally and grow. If the trend remains positive and people are moving in the right direction, it's probably going to be better when it gets where it's going if it goes that way. And I think where we see disasters, whether it's in philanthropy or other things, is when you try to take the fast route, like, you know, you do the Mark Zuckerberg and dump $1 gajillion on the Newark public school system. It didn't work, because they didn't take the grassroots sort of slow incremental approach. And so, I mean, I'm really hopeful, and I hope it goes quickly, but I think the trend's moving in the right direction, and I think some of these things are going to work themselves out over time, whether it's, like I said, how many women are serving in the infantry or any number of things.
Sometimes you do just have to march on Washington, though.
Yeah.
There are times, Martin Luther King, women's right to vote, all
Sure.
these kinds of things. Like sometimes it moves too slowly, but sometimes, as you see, you can't just there's a lot of good ways to build a campfire up and just watch yourself throw money into it that's just burning it. And so,
That's a really good point. So I don't mean to say everyone should just sort of calm down and don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. That is not what I'm saying. It's only going to keep trending in the right direction if people continue to care and fight for it. And that's guys like you and I, and that's the women in our lives and others. So
and a lot of the leaders in our community, just accepting the fact that people will look up to them,
Mm-hmm.
and the more that the people are, the more that women are able to embrace that role, if that role is for them, then the better off everyone's going to be. And the more people there are, the more people, it's math, that there will be who can sort of champion a cause and still remain true to themselves.
100%. And so if I can say one more thing that's a little provocative. I think we're a long way in and we haven't gotten ourselves in too much trouble yet. It's almost time to bring Balmer in here because I'm interested to see what the community's got to say about this.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I look forward to hearing from them. The last thing I'll say is this: is that I hope that women are always good to each other, because that's one of the things that I have seen just in my own personal experience and in talking with a lot of women that I trust and respect in my life, is that you got to take care of each other in this process. And so, look, sometimes the deck is not stacked in your favor. There are a lot of instances where the table's just not tilted your way. And I completely accept that. And I'm here to do whatever I can to sort of right that. However, you got to be good to each other. And I've seen too much, in my experience, women who are all too willing to sort of tear each other down or to be unsupportive of others that they see having a little bit of success or that kind of thing. And this is not universal. I'm just speaking only from my own experience, but I know that those of you out there that are listening have at least seen some of this. You got to be good to each other. And my wife and I have talked a lot about this, and one of the things that she says to me often is, I'm jealous of you because of the relationship you have with all the guys in your life. It just seems so easy. You guys seem to really like and respect each other, and you just support each other, and there's no jealousy, there's none of that. It just seems like a very low stress, low pressure environment. And I just haven't been able to find that same level with the women in my life. And
I mean, the SF bar is pretty high.
Yeah,
with that stuff, right? I mean,
I have some of the best friends I'm lucky to have some of the best friends and co-workers and former teammates and stuff in the world. But anyway, I guess I don't want to belabor it, but my point is this. If you have an opportunity to support somebody from your community, whatever that community happens to be, if they start having a little bit of success, if they start getting a little bit of a spotlight, if they're maybe if they're getting traction in an area that you're maybe struggling in a little bit, please do not tear them down or put them off to the side. Do whatever you can to reinforce them and support them, regardless of what's going on in your own personal life, because that to me has been one of the things that's been most disheartening in a lot of communities, by the way. We see this in the veterans community too, by the way.
Even within the Special Forces community.
Yeah, you start having a little bit of success and people start knowing your name, and there will be people that chirp up and be like, oh, that guy's a sellout, or he's not giving enough back to charity. And it's like, geez, man. Like, I'm still trying to figure this out myself. Let me catch my breath and pay my mortgage, and then maybe we'll figure out some of this stuff, you know? So it's not exclusive to women, I guess. So maybe I'm making a broader statement in that when someone from your community is representing you well and is having some success, just get behind them and support them, and don't feel like it doesn't say anything bad about you if someone else is having a lot of success.
No, it's great.
So help them out.
Cool. Bomber, what do you got?
Holy shit.
Bring it in, Bomber.
Today is the hardest time I've ever had not using my signature hashtag. They don't want to talk to me. What they want to talk about is Sandra. Come on.
Sandra, bring it in, girl.
They want
Monster.
a female on this show.
Monster.
And so Sandra, they can talk to her about events, stuff like that.
You can get that. Sandra is our accountant at GORUCK, by the way. She's been here only, what, 6 months or so?
Like 4.
4?
Like 4.
So Sandra has jumped into the fire with both feet. So we see you out at all the local rucks, and you did Battle of the Ruck Clubs.
Yes.
And you're signed up for your first tough.
This one, boom, teammate. Teammate right here.
That's right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And you did the 10 miler.
I didn't eat any of my teammates, Blayne.
I know, I'm a
Like
terrible
you did.
Well, I'm a terrible
SP.
leader. Everyone knows that about
I
me.
was on Jason's team.
And so you have a tough coming up in Savannah, right?
Yes.
St. Patty's Day?
Yes.
Which is,
Next weekend.
you ready?
Not this weekend, next weekend.
Monster
I
wants
don't
to
think I'm
join.
ever ready.
Yeah.
Everyone else tells me I'm ready, so that must mean I'm ready.
So look, you can say what if you have anything to add here. I would be curious to know your experience being here at GORUCK, because we have some pretty awesome women in the organization and here in the office. Could you, what's that been like, kind of being here? You're only 4 or 5 months into it, you know, having Emily, Lindsay, Kendra, lots of awesome ladies here at GORUCK.
Lots of awesome. So when you're talking about people you look up to, I always try to look for somebody that I already know so that I can get mentoring from them. So I think that's what I've experienced here. Emily she is badass. She's gonna beat the guys on top of beating the girls and beat everyone that's there. And I've never seen somebody as competitive in my life.
She's a little competitive.
Beating Emily.
So we went and hiked to the Lost City in Colombia, which is basically 30 miles out and back through the Colombian jungle. And I'm not ashamed to say it, you know, she basically kicked my ass, right? She was faster. She just was, there's a couple pictures that she took, of course, of me, which was not usually the case, because as promised, we've got a women's line that's launching this year, and Emily had some of the prototype samples that are done. And so she had a full-time photographer, this guy, on her for basically the whole trip. I've been editing the photos down from something like 8,000 that I took over the trip.
You just can't get enough of her, man.
It's insane,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
And so every once in a while, especially on this trek to the Lost City, you'll hear all about it at some point. It's an awesome trip. Go if you can. And she was just faster. She was just in better shape. And so, you know, good on her.
So, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
She's pretty competitive.
Yes.
Emily's competitive.
Yes, incredibly competitive.
You look
And
up to her
then-
competitiveness.
Yes. That's something that I've never had, I never had a lot of drive for competitive. Some of the guys in the office are like, say what? And I think that was Emily. So I think all of the women in the office have helped me to be better than what I was coming in, and to help kind of give me that competitive edge that I didn't really have before coming to GORUCK. So now at CrossFit, I'm not wanting to be the bottom. I'm trying to get in the middle or not be the last one finishing. So I'm
You redid 18.2, right? The
I
competitive
redid it.
fire was going there. Like, I'm doing it again.
Yeah. So, and not just the women, but all of the guys in the office helped too. When I did the memorial WOD, I was the last one finishing my run, and I had the 45-pound weight, and at the very end, Nick was like, "You got it. Put it on, start walking, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop, you got it, you got it, you got it," all the way. So I had that support. So none of the guys try to take the weight or limit your reps. They try to get you through it. So I kind of see both the men and the women in the office helping push women to be badasses.
That's an interesting point, is that I think a lot of men think the chivalrous thing to do if they see someone struggling is just to take it from them and help and do it for them. But that's not the vibe around here.
Everybody pulls their weight.
I will fight you. You're not taking this from me. Yeah. That's good. So what? So you guys also sometimes slip off the ladies in the office, and I don't know what you guys are doing, and I don't ask.
We do ladies'
But I
rocks,
occasionally see you guys just
lunch.
take off and.
Yes. Yes. So,
Have you solved all of our problems on
I think
these?
it's moved to Fridays now. So Fridays we'll go on lunch, and any of the women who can get away from the workload, and we go ruck for an hour, and it's one of those fun rucks, so not necessarily timed. We do all still have weight, and we get to talk about anything. So it might be something that we're working with at work and trying to work through, or just talking about girl things in general. That was actually one of the things I brought up with Emily one time. Someone said, "You're fit," and I went, "Am I?" Like, it just wasn't a thought that I had had. So seeing an outsider say it to you, it's kind of how I look at all of the GRTs every time I go to an event. Like, they're all fit to me, and I'm not. So I think that's one of those things that just kind of think about and talk about with everybody.
Yeah, well, it's hard. When you keep good company, it's helpful in a lot of ways. It's great to be around good people. You should always do that. But it can also be hard when you're around impressive people all the time. It can definitely, you can think, man, all these people are so impressive, and maybe I'm not. I think I feel that way even sometimes around here, and I think that's a good thing ultimately. But it's nice when those people are also kind. And so it's great when all these badass people that you get to work with every day are also, able to say, hey, you're equally badass, and we all respect you the same way. Because it can be tricky to look around and see sort of greatness all around you and wonder if like maybe you're like the turd in the punch bowl, but we're just lucky to have all awesome people hanging around here.
Absolutely. I had actually only stopped by for a beer. I was headed out.
You got to be careful when you show up here after
you got to
4:30.
be careful.
Didn't even tell my husband. He's
Sorry.
on kid duty. So I saw.
Woo, let's do some more.
So I saw a post, and it's the reason why I stayed. And I said, "All right, Bomber, yeah, I'm in the background. I'll come out here." One guy said he's been trying to get his mother to sign up for a light, and she hasn't yet. So I was terrified going out for my first light. I was here for maybe 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was there. It was the Veterans Day one, right?
The Veterans Day.
Yeah, we did it together.
And I read if you can do a 3K, 5K, that you could do it. And
Or
I'm
a 3K.
Okay. I'm like, okay, I run 3 miles regularly. I can do this. Showed up a little bit terrified, and I finished.
Yeah?
And it was awesome. I finished smiling. I enjoyed my beer. And I made a lot of friends on that ruck that I still remember. Like Sarah, she was doing her first one with me. Anytime I see her, I'm going to be like, "You, Sarah from Orlando." Like, I will always remember her. So we went through it together.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. We struggle every day around here about how do you get people over the hump. The challenge is intimidating. You say Special Forces cadre, and there are a lot of folks that think, nah, I just can't do it. And look, it's challenging. It's meant to be challenging. So you feel, like you've done something at the end. You have that reward. But the light is a pretty fun event. And if you're not in the greatest of shape, you may have to lean on your teammates a little more. You may have to gut it out a little more. But it's pretty doable if you want it.
Yeah, I mean, to prepare, it's just you ruck a little bit. You don't want the GORUCK challenge, whatever variety, whichever poison you pick, so to say. You don't want that to be the first time you've ever put a rucksack on with some weight in it, right? I mean,
It'll be a long 5 hours.
put some weight on your back and ruck and go for a ruck. It's great. It works for everyone, men, women, all of us.
There's a lot of fans of Emily and Sandra on here today commenting.
Boom.
Not surprisingly.
Yep.
He promised me questions, and there haven't been.
Yeah. So are there other questions from the community?
Other questions,
are we
or
just gonna
did we-
interview you?
I think we were too diplomatic or something if there's not a firestorm, right?
We've pissed somebody off. Bomber, what else is going on out there in the world today?
On there.
Well, good.
Easy enough. We can just sit here and drink beer. I'm fine with that. You guys want to watch that? I'm down.
There's a Badass Babes 2018 calendar. So Dan was here. There's a lot from the All Women's Challenge. And he was here thumbing through it. He's like, badass. This is awesome. He's like, damn, I'm in this calendar a lot, right? Because he's in there a couple times in the background. It's not about you, Dan, right? But he's in the background at some of the events. It's cool.
Be around all these badass women from the GORUCK
proceeds
community.
for that went to GBF.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so if you got the Badass Babes calendar, you supported GBF. And good on you. Speaking of supporting great causes, it is Ruck Your Dog going on right now.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win-win. It's a win for you, win for your dog, a win for Pets for Patriots.
Beth up at Pets for Patriots is great. I'm actually heading, I'm going to go see Jen at Green Bray Foundation this week. She's another awesome woman GRT.
Yeah.
Badass babe.
Yeah.
Excited to see her. And yeah, it's cool. We'll keep plugging away.
Okay, that sounds like that's about it for this week.
Women, we love you.
Bottom line. See you next time.